Welcome to Vartalapa or Conversation, a podcast born from countless conversations that had to become more than just passing thoughts. I'm Srividya Venkatasubramanya, founder and executive director of the Rave Cultural Foundation, where we bring the richness of traditional Indian performing arts. This limited podcast series delves into the values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, transforming them from concepts into actions we live by. Through stories, shared experiences, and discussions with friends and experts from the community, we explore the intricate world of running an arts and culture-based nonprofit. By presenting our worldview on various topics related to our mission and work, we hope to inspire you to learn more about us and join us in our mission to bring people together and make a difference in the world we live in. Our mission at Rave Cultural Foundation is to share and celebrate traditional Indian performing arts with the Northwest Arkansas community and beyond. Through real-world experiences, inspiring performances, community showcases, classes, food, or jam sessions, the Rave Cultural Foundation sponsors events, provides education, and offers training in the arts and culture of India. I hope that Rave will leave its impact on our community by normalizing diversity.
All right, well, here we are.
Here we are. And today we are going to talk about marketing, especially for nonprofits. That's the main topic. So many, especially new nonprofits, they struggle with getting the word out. They struggle. I mean, it's real. It's not something because most nonprofits are started by people who are very passionate. Mm-hmm. So they're not thinking about marketing. They're not thinking about getting the word out. They're just
they're thinking about the community.
Yes, they're thinking about their work. So, but then we live in a world where getting the word out has become complicated now. A few years ago, it was just about printing a few pamphlets, going and sticking it in everybody's mailbox or something, and you were done. Yeah. And today you can't do that, and there are just so many other aspects of it. So I'm very excited to have all three of you here. Each one of you I have met and learned a lot from, and we have Kai, who's
Hello.
A brilliant photographer and artist, and then we have Eric, who builds websites and all things, I want to say online, but that sounds a little different.
A little bit online and offline.
Yes.
I'm waiting to see what you say about me.
and Tom, who I shall call my marketing guru.
Okay.
Because I'm really when I talked to you and learned more about where you come from and what you've done, I was like, oh wow, I never thought that somebody would have that much experience particularly in marketing.
See, now they're on video, you can see me blushing here. Because you're giving me such great compliments.
The pink light helps.
Oh yes, there we go.
So let me just have you all introduce yourselves, and then we'll get going with some questions.
Okay. You're looking at me, so should I go first?
Yes,
okay.
Let's start there.
My name's Tom Hoehn. I live in downtown Bentonville, but I'm a transplant. I've been here for like 12 years now. I moved here from upstate New York. I've been a digital marketer my entire career, so I probably started, I remember the day, the time, and the place I saw the World Wide Web for the first time. It was February 15th, 1995, and from then on, I said, this is going to change everything, and I want to be a part of that.
95?
Yeah. Okay. So early days. I chair the Public Art Advisory Committee for the City of Bentonville, and I'm a recent board member of the Rave Cultural Foundation. So I'm happy to be here and happy to support you in any way that I can.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Eric. I'm Eric Huber with Blue Zoo Creative. I'm founder and chief creative officer. Blue Zoo's been around for about 16 years. I'm here because Tom introduced me to Rave, so I've been learning a lot, and I've got some friends that are on the board or have worked with you. But yeah, my background is focusing on that visual identity and trying to get people to do something. And specifically for nonprofits, we need donors, we need volunteers, we need the people who are the service you're providing, those people to get them interested. And so it's works hand in hand with marketing to try to visually guide people to do that. And so that's why I'm here to get involved in the chat. We work with several nonprofits, so we've been doing it for a long time.
Thank
Wonderful.
you. Thank you so much.
And I am Kai Dratchenberg. I currently run my own production company called Kai DVD Productions, and I'm an artist more so than anything. That's kind of where it all started, is just a passion to want to get to know the extents of what it is that this can be. And that kind of blossoms into a whole bunch of different things. And so, I've gone and studied things in film and studied music, studied photography, and with all these things, these are great tools, but what are great tools without good perspective? And so I've also learned psychology and sociology and philosophy to try and understand, well, how do you use these tools effectively to actually get at something that becomes meaningful? And so that's kind of where I'm at, and I'm so happy to be here and getting to talk about Rave and everything they've been doing, because wow, getting to grow with Rave for the last 3 years has been like, I have felt my life elevate. Like, I have felt myself be able to see myself in a more serious context, because people take me seriously every day. And I so much appreciate that. So thank you guys.
It's been such a pleasure working with you, because I remember, I think it was during the pandemic, we were still on Zoom and everything. And we were desperately looking for a photographer, because we'd had some people, some volunteers, who'd help us take amazing, beautiful pictures and everything. The problem with volunteers is they can't come for every event that you want them to come and cover. So, and I have a phone, and that's pretty much it. And again, I'm the founder, and hard for me to be thinking about taking pictures when I'm thinking about, is that mic working, and the artists get here on time.
Right.
I remember talking to Kai and David at that time. Both of you, and he's a photographer, and David is a videographer.
And we were co-owning 3R Productions.
Yeah,
that's kind of when we started with you guys too.
And they were trying to figure out, because everyone was figuring things out during the pandemic. We had started, Rave started in 2018, and then within 2 years, just when we were trying to get some traction, we went into shutdown, and
right.
we were all reinventing ourselves. We did so much online content and everything, but exactly, I mean, that's kind of where perhaps we could start, about, what do we really need to get the word out, right, about any nonprofit. And obviously we have the example of Rave that we could use, but
right.
like we very much knew that photographs were super important,
Yeah, because there's going to the event, experiencing all the people that are there, and there's an ambiance about that. But you're in the stands with a photographer. You're able to actually get up next to the performer, get up next to the expressions, especially with like Bharatanatyam dance. It's not just dancing; it's whole mudras that they are executing perfectly as they're going through this, with like full facial expressions and everything to get across like the experience of like the God that they're embodying in that dance in that moment. Like you don't always get that, and so to be able to like encapsulate it is something that is important for the community to like reflect on. Absolutely. Yeah.
If I could add to that, because you're spot on about capturing those key moments and the emotion, and try to win the hearts and minds of people to make them understand the importance of the work.
Yeah.
But I've seen so many nonprofits. You mentioned it earlier. You used to print a pamphlet, you're done. And these days it's just so fragmented, and you unfortunately have to be in many places. You don't have the luxury of just doing email marketing. You need to be on social. You need to print those programs, and so on and so forth. And I understand the challenges with every nonprofit, just resources, funding. It's just always tight, the resources. And what often gets left by the wayside is telling, you just did it so beautifully, the impassioned story of I've seen this, and it's here, and the expressions, and that gets, it doesn't make it to the social media or whatever. And what you end up getting, the social media posts are name, rank, serial number.
Right.
The story is
and the story just goes away. And why would anyone want to attach themselves to whatever your nonprofit is, Rave included, just with this, okay, it's great, it's very perfunctory, but you, especially in Rave, has such great stories to tell, and the impact you have in the community.
Yeah.
And it's such rich, and the whole community can benefit from this, not just the Indian community.
Yes.
And those stories need to be told.
Yes.
But the tension of finding the resources with everything else as you're running around, chasing around to see if the artist is here and the mic is on and everything else, and who's doing the marketing is real, not only for you, but for every nonprofit. And I've seen so many nonprofits that are so caught up in that they don't do any marketing. And it's like you put on the show and you got two rows in the theater are full, and you should have a packed house. So you got to
Right.
find the balance somehow.
Yeah.
Like even with websites, for example, I remember when we first started, we had a Wix website, and I mean, it's great. And
Yeah, you have to start somewhere. That's why I tell everybody, you got to start someplace.
Right, and we started, and then after a while, I realized that there were things I couldn't update on Wix. I needed somebody who knew HTML and this and that, and just stuff that perhaps I could learn, but I don't have the time to learn.
Right.
Yeah.
So
It's a
websites
lot.
is another really big thing we need.
That's one of the best places to tell your story. If you're reaching out to people, you've got a great imagery. If you have that story, you want to guide them back to the website because you own that. You don't own Instagram. You don't own Facebook.
Right.
You don't own Google. But if you can drive them to your website, you can tell more stories. You can engage them with more videos, show the photography, talk about the artist, have interviews with the artist, tell their story. And then how does that reflect in the community and for the message you're trying to do to share the culture? And that's just key. And so guiding people, I always tell people it's great to organize your website in a certain way, but you want to guide people through the experience and tell the story that way. And one of the things, the questions that you'd asked originally was, how do nonprofits set up for success? Well, part of the thing is we're all passionate when we start, someone who starts a nonprofit. And just for the record, let you guys know, my background has always been visual and a little bit of the programming stuff. But I had parents who were both in the social working field who threatened my life if I went into social work. And so I never went that direction, but we help a lot of nonprofits. I love working with nonprofits specifically because, the passion is it just catches on. And so one of the biggest things that I noticed right off the bat was everybody was just focusing on what that passion. Now, it's really important if you're doing suicide prevention, you want to focus on reaching those people. Mm-hmm. But the other key thing for all organizations is you got to have that volunteer. And you need the donors so that you can serve those people. And so telling the story, that converts people, the volunteers, the donors, that gets people involved in a great way. And if you own that website, that's where you own the messaging. And you can try to share it everywhere, but as we know, sometimes you don't show up on certain things unless people who are searching just might not know the words to search for. And that's a whole different part of the conversation.
And to expand on that, it's like once you do have these fundamental elements that are laid down and like you have put in the work on the front end, like just the little tiny things you do that are really well after the fact, it's the thing that starts to make it real. The substance comes to life. All of the vision begins to actually manifest in people because it's just like, wow, they see it, they feel it. They're like, this is something I can see how I can plug in. I can participate in a real way because people want to actually participate in their community. They want to feel connected to this broader, movement of people because that is what is happening. But because we do have so many different ways, like you have either Facebook or Instagram or someplace, wherever else on the internet that you're connecting with people. Yeah, we're connecting, but it's in a very fractured kind of way. Doesn't mean those aren't meaningful connections, but when you're not next to somebody and you're really there with them, sometimes you do feel almost isolated. Yes. And to be able to like consistently come to a place where you feel like you're making a difference because like Ravic Cultural Foundation is bringing some kind of way for them to actually plug into a large community is so important, like to the development of people, just in general.
Oh, and that's that's where the strategy really comes in, right? Mm-hmm. Because we were very aware of that when we started, because we very much like a dance performance in India or a music performance is always in person. It is because it's about the audience, the artist. We're all sharing in that experience. Mm-hmm. Because when a singer, especially in traditional music, when the singer sings a certain raga, in a certain way, it's as an artist, it is his responsibility to carry the audience with him or her to a certain elevated experience of yourself. And so it's always been about in-person experience. And then especially as we were growing, and there is this pressure, to put out videos, and with the pandemic, it became so real.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh my gosh, how do we do this? Because we didn't want to get into, we felt there are enough videos out there on YouTube or wherever. And our goal was to bring people together, and to have these conversations and to share that, oh my gosh, did you also feel that, right? That excitement, which on a video you may feel it perhaps, but you can't share it with someone unless you're watching it with someone.
And then we have to make it really approachable. You mentioned the word raga. Okay, I'm sure that's something we would do. But we have to be very mindful of every phrase, word we use. You grew up, you know that word, isn't that?
True.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me what a raga is, whatever. But we've got to be very inclusive in our how we describe this thing, to be more welcoming so more people can experience this thing. And I think one of the biggest thing I've seen with nonprofits just running into this is the passion that you started this with, and many nonprofits too. What got you to where you are today is not going to get you where you need to be, and that passion is not going to be enough. And it's just like an internet startup company. Yeah. What got you to where you are is not going to get you where you're going to be. So, and many don't make it. So,
that's true.
Yeah.
And so, many are at this inflection point right now, and I see time and time again, like, we need more donors, we need more members, we need more donors, and you go to the donor member page, and it's like, if you go to this precious metal level, whatever it is, you get 2 free tickets, and this, it's not like, what is the impact of my donation doing? Like, you could fund 3 different kids' lessons in either dance or music or something. You could fund this group of, kids that don't have the wherewithal to come to this performance, the impact, because everyone has this innate need to want to connect and be together. And I've seen most nonprofits I deal with do a really crummy job of explaining the benefit in an emotional way of your donation. It's like, we'll get a tote bag and a T-shirt and a bag, but it's got to be more than that.
Very true.
And so I think there's opportunity there for nonprofits, and then you will see the connections that you get, and it just makes more of a vital organization as well. And it makes the organization itself take a really hard look at, like, what are we doing this for, and trying to articulate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I personally, as a founder, I have felt that if you ask me, I can tell you. But if you were to ask me to, just go and talk about what I do in front of 10 people or 100 people, I'm like, okay, what do you want to know? Because my mission, the reason for what I do, I can say it in 1 minute and I'm done, unless you want more details. And that's where I think there is that, so important to get the right people for the job.
Yes.
Because I am not a marketing person. I'm a founder. I'm an entrepreneur. I believe in starting all the chaos.
I like that.
But your mindset, the entrepreneur mindset, and it's a founder's mentality as well, which is a good thing, because you want to make sure that impression stays and the passion doesn't get lost when you're just trying to action things. And so to try to activate that or put process around it and get the right people around you. And it's how you use your board members. It's how you use the staff that you have, whether they're part-time, and hopefully we'll get them to full-time, or agency support or contractors or whatever. And just making sure everybody's like laser focused on their roles is both hard and a key thing to do.
Right.
But you have to keep doing it. I mean, that's kind of,
Yeah, and in working, just having that messaging. There's the difference between a business and a nonprofit. Businesses are often rewarded for taking risks. Nonprofits are not. So you have to walk that fine line of what you're doing, how you're getting that message across, where you're spending your dollars. Having that great volunteer support. What I've seen a lot in nonprofits is that they get these volunteers, and like you said, they're not available all the time. So you have to have that system. Having those systems is really important. And like, okay, so I've got this person can be there to shoot photography and video on this one, but they can't come to the next one. Who's another volunteer that is so excited to work with us? Let's get them set up to volunteer, or so on and so forth. And then your volunteers, you just got to hold them accountable to something. And it doesn't have to be, it's not a full-time job. They're volunteering because they love what you do. You just have to have a system and hold them accountable, because they're volunteering, and that's great for your support. But if they don't follow through, then you're messed up. You're not getting what you needed to to get.
That tension actually is very real. I mean, it's because like even with photography and video and all, when we started, I learned so much about taking videos and editing them and everything,
Right.
and your computer crashes because the file is too big.
Yeah.
You don't have the right tools, and
Right.
the reason it fascinates me. You have you call a plumber or an electrician, and he gets the job done in like 5 minutes, and you've been
Right.
for like a
Toiling
whole
away.
day.
knowing where to hit that hammer.
So it's the
It's
same
true.
thing, and like you said, you don't get rewarded as a non-profit. People, the first thing people ask is it free? Why do I have to pay? You are a non-profit. Why are you asking me to pay for a ticket or give you money and all these?
And that's
things?
one of those
Well,
other
it's a part of
things.
it. Like,
Yeah.
we live in a space where it's just like, hey, things cost money.
Yeah,
So-
and that's one of the biggest thing nonprofits. I mean, that's another big problem they all have is that everybody assumes like I want all my money to go to this thing. It's like, well, the director is part of the thing. The people who working are part of that thing, and yeah, you don't want 90% to go to the staff, but some of it's got to. And we use the rest of the money to make this affordable and bring our people in. I was part of an organization that brought great speakers in. We covered their room and board, and they had to pay for their own flights. But they were in the United States, but we did everything else for them. We paid, took them, fed them, took them places, gave them a good experience. I think some of them we actually did pay flights and hotel fees, and they gave great presentations, and it excited the audience, and so that worked really well. But the tickets weren't free either. Members got a little bit discount, but things had to be covered. You have to cover the space, like you said. And so that idea that's one of the biggest challenges. One of the things you were talking about is people have this impression that it should be free, or all the money is going towards education or bringing the guest there, which it can, but you got to operate.
And speaking of like giving people who are coming into this space like an experience, something that I've noticed come up quite a bit is I have seen people interested in wanting to participate in Indian fashion, but they feel like it's scary to do so. They don't want to offend, they don't want to step on any toes, but they're excited and wanting to, like kind of step into the color, the life a little bit, It's just something that, like, for me, I'm like thinking if there is something that Rave Cultural Foundation in a material way, like the way that they could like bring something about is like maybe you guys could do some kind of fashion show that makes it real for a more contemporary audience to be able to see themselves in this and go like, okay, it's okay, to like be a part of it,
And we had a conversation talking about cultural appropriation is a big thing right now because you don't want to offend.
Yeah.
And so we had a great discussion about that. It's like, look, if you love Indian culture, great. Don't buy Indian clothing from, Bob down the road. you need to who's bought it wholesale from someplace we don't know. You buy it from someone who's Indian or has those roots and has brought clothing over there. That's not appropriation. That is supporting the culture. And I was like, that's really important.
I mean, there is a fine line. You just have to be careful about it because you just nowadays especially you really don't know. I was talking to one of there is this lady called Gayatri. She runs something called Stree Couture by Gayatri here in Bentonville, and she runs it from her home, and she brings a lot of handlooms and things like that, which I personally like. And I was talking to her and I said, even in India now, it's becoming hard for me to understand whether this is pure handloom or not, because there is just so many new products and companies and
sources where you get
yes,
yeah.
so yes, I mean there are some standardizations. You get those certificates and the marks and trademarks and things like that. All that is there. But I told her, I said, all the more, when I buy from her, I'm like, okay, I can trust, when she tells me that this is pure silk or that it is pure cotton and hand woven and not, some machine made thing, I can trust that and I don't have to worry about it. Because in India, we always bought from this store called Nalli. It's very Nalli has been like a name for silk saris and clothing for hundreds of years. And we bought like 4 generations of our family have bought from that store. We buy saris for our weddings. We go there and we buy our sari and things like that. And we went there because we knew, we didn't have to worry about the quality, or we didn't have to worry about being overcharged or anything. So that trust in your source, I think, will help you prevent appropriating culture, and that's where the relationship comes, because you have to have a relationship. You have to know these people,
Or even being open about sharing just your story opens the door for now I understand what is appropriation or not, a little bit closer to that now that you've explained it to me, and just creating a welcoming environment where I can learn and grow with them too.
And that's what I've been getting out from Ravi. And she informed me that goat yoga, on the other hand, is a little bit appropriation.
I see. Okay.
No one is benefiting from
the biggest one that caught me was beer yoga.
Yes, I looked it up.
That is.
Okay, because
That's like pineapple on pizza. Something should be
now.
done. Hey, can I change topic for just a little bit
Sure.
to bring it back to the nonprofit
Sure.
thing a little bit? I just, when I run, you asked about experience and what can you do better in this and that, and not you, but just all
yes,
nonprofits.
the strategy, yes.
And I've seen 2 themes over and over again. And one is like preparing for agility, is what I used to call it with my teams. And
love that.
so much, if you prepare for agility, you can move quickly. And if everyone knows their role, you can operate like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
So if you have a concert or a dance or a talk or whatever, these are the things that need to happen 8 weeks before, 7 weeks before, 2 days before, the day of, 2 days after, whatever. And if you document that, because what I've seen in so many nonprofits is all institutional knowledge in someone's head, or part of your head and part of your head. And things fall through the cracks, fire drills happen. Who's doing the program? Oh, I thought you were printing. Blah, blah, blah. Never happened, I'm sure. Yeah. But, and it's just that basic, it just sounds so basic, but that kind
Process.
of codifying your process,
Yeah.
it gives everyone, it manages the expectations of everyone on the team. And the second part of that is preparing for agility, is like activating your events. So the day of the event, if you're there taking pictures, I need to make sure that I get from you at least and you put a processor in. I want 3 pictures and a 1 10-second video
Absolutely.
snippet. So I can make the definitive post on Instagram and Facebook that is seen first, not by some parent or someone else that kind of scoops us,
Right.
And then that becomes the one that a parent or attendee or anyone else shares. So you have to be ready for that. You can't wait another week before, here's the folder with all the pictures that we've edited and color corrected and blah, blah, blah. Yes, you'll get all that, and we'll have that for our archives, but you need to prepare for agility now. And so many people that do events and things just do not have those processes in place. So
And it makes it easier for the volunteers, too, because they know what's expected
expectations
of them.
are set.
And you can plan way ahead. And you can anybody could just come in. It's like, hey, here's the positions we have available. Which one do you want? Of course, if you already know someone's good for it, you'll plug them in. But otherwise, here's the 10 things we need done. Who's available? I'll do this.
You know where I learned this from? Sorry.
No.
But do you remember a number of years ago when there was a Super Bowl and the lights went out, right? And Oreo did a Facebook post. It was, you can dunk in the dark, right? And they did that while the blackout still had happened, right? And the reason that worked is they knew some cultural phenomena would happen during the Super Bowl. It always does. And so they had in a room at the Super Bowl a copywriter, a photographer, a graphic designer, a lawyer, and the marketing person to make the decision right there, and they were ready to go. And that's why they were able to generate that meme within 5 minutes.
Wow.
Because they were prepared for agility.
Right.
They knew
Yeah.
something was going to be happening.
This.
I love that. I
I
really
really
love
do.
That's my
Yeah.
new mantra now, agility.
Prepare for agility. Okay.
Yeah, no, and thank you all so much for all this lovely conversation.
Absolutely.
And frankly, a lot of these resources that we've been talking about, they don't have to necessarily cost a lot of money, because I've talked to other people, other founders, and I always get asked, and I tell them, when we met, we made a good deal, that we would exchange Indian food for, some discounts on,
Right.
on photos.
I mean, when you got the great samosas.
Right, exactly. And
Please, samo.
Whatever it takes, whatever it takes.
Samosas.
Whatever it takes, and there, we found this thing called Tech Soup, and I believe there are a lot of services like Tech Soup online, which basically it's a marketplace where you can get something like Google Workspace for free for nonprofits. So there are a lot of resources which are available, which are heavily discounted. And
well, Google also has I haven't dove into it, but it's Google ad grants.
Yep.
Up
Yes.
to $10,000 a month
Yeah.
in advertising. So,
Yeah. So
depending on your
if-
keywords, that's 6 posts or 6 views.
and that's the thing, you have to keep digging, you
Right,
have
yes.
to keep finding, you have to keep I remember I made so many cold calls before we met, or
Yeah.
before we met with Lyndall, when he joined. So you just have to keep
Yeah.
meeting people, asking, and that's the first question I ask. What do you do? So watch out for me, and thank you all so much.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Hey, thank you.
Yes, I really thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing all your lovely thoughts and knowledge. I hope it helps more people, and we'll see more people at our next Vartalapa.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Go
Thank
around.
you.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Vartalapa. Thank you for joining us as we explored the world of nonprofits and the values that drive us. A huge thanks to our guests for their insights and stories. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Let's keep these important conversations alive and thriving. You can find our podcast of Vartalapa or Conversation on Spotify and our YouTube channel. Be sure to tune in, stay curious, stay connected, and join us next time on Vartalapa. Until then, keep making a difference in your world.